We're talking about the plastic card, ma'am. Kailan po kaya darating yan, ma'am? Kasi ako, ma'am, matagal na po ako nagpa-register sa PSA.
Initial stopgap measures po for this is the issuance po of the national ID in paper format.
We're talking about the plastic card, ma'am.
If your so-called national ID is paper, it's rejected by banks, rejected by government offices, and still needs a backup IDs, that's not an ID. That's just a souvenir. What's up, guys? Happy Thursday! Today, we will break down policy, logic, and systems that are supposed to work, but somehow always end up burdening ordinary Filipinos instead. In today's video, we're talking about Senator Erwin Tulfo hearing in the Philippine National ID system, why it's painfully slow, why the paper ID is rejected almost everywhere. And lastly, we were going to talk about overseas Filipino workers, why there should be a single OFW card, why e-pass and repeated verification makes no sense. This is a breakdown. Because if your national ID doesn't work nationally, that's not an ID. That's a souvenir. Welcome back to my channel.
Lahat po ba may national ID na, ma'am? And may we know ilan po ang may national ID na sa ating bansa?
As of now, we have a total of 90 million already.
Total na target na maabot po na lahat na magka-ID ng mga adults po. Ang problema rin po natin, ma'am, napapansin ho namin, mabuti nandito po kayo. Ang reklamo, kailan po kaya darating yan, ma'am? Kasi ako, ma'am, matagal na po ako nagpa-register sa PSA. May PSA po, sa DSWD pa po ako. Pero hanggang ngayon, ala pa po akong physical card.
Yes po. The physical card po, we ensure naman po that it will be provided to all those without the physical card yet. But initial stopgap measures po for this is the issuance po of the national ID in paper format and the national ID in the eGov.ph, which is the digital national ID.
Ang problem po kasi natin, ma'am, pag yung mga papel-papel lang muna, temporary, parang driver license noon, napepeke po ito. Iyon po yung sinasabi natin, baka hindi tanggapin ng mga agencies pag humingi ng assistance or ayuda. Ang hinihingi po ID, photo ID. Kung papel-papel lang po ito, baka hindi po ito tatanggapin. Yun ang nagiging, ano ba palang muna ang problema? Bakit po nagkakadelay tayo na ma-issuehan lahat itong 90 million ng physical card, ng card mismo? Ano ang problem?
Initially po, sir, there has been a problem in terms of the printing of the cards. So wala po ngayong ongoing na printing of the cards.
Walang printing ng national ID.
Apo.
Kailan magre-resume yung printing? Kasi pinagmamalaki po natin lagi, national ID, ala naman pa pala po. We're talking about the plastic card, ma'am.
Yes, for
Kailan ho kaya yun, yung plastic card na yan?
the resumption of the printing po will be, I'll get back na lang po.
Sige po, okay.
So 5 years ago, I applied for the national ID. 5 taon na. Hanggang ngayon, wala pa rin dumarating. So, let me ask you this. After 5 years of waiting, ano ba dapat ang maramdaman ko? Should I be excited, relief, pride? And I'll be honest with you, wala. Because even if dumating na siya bukas, what exactly am I getting? A card with a QR code? Souvenir ba to? Even if you finally get it, it's still not enough. You know why? Because you show your national ID, they'll still ask, may iba pa po ba kayong valid ID? So what's the purpose of this? Para saan pa siya? A national ID that still requires more valid IDs is not a national ID. It defeats its own purpose already. Ikaw ang nag-apply, di ba? Naghintay ng maraming taon. Ikaw ang mag-a-adjust. Kapag papel lang ang binigay, ikaw pa ang magpapalaminate. Ikaw ang hahanapan ng backup ID. So, what exactly did the system solve? Because A real national ID should do one thing very clearly. It's to replace requirements, not to add them. Kung national ID talaga yan, dapat nandun na ang lahat ng impormasyon mo, di ba? Your identity, your records, your government transactions. It should be linked to all. One-stop shop. Hindi ka na dapat magdadala ng birth certificate, barangay clearance, photocopies of each, mga dokumento na pipilahan mo pa ng mahaba. Why are the Filipinos forced to reprove their identity over and over and over again? Other countries figured this out years ago. Their national IDs have chips. You insert it, scan it, and the system already knows who you are. One card, one access point. Easy. Wala kang kailangan dalhin na kung ano-ano. Hindi ka nagdadala ng buong buhay mo sa isang envelope. Right? Now let's talk about OFWs because this is where it gets really clear. So let me ask you, what is an OFW card exactly? Tapos may OFW pass pa? Like, does it have a chip that accesses all the information of the person working abroad? Is all the documents they need embedded there? Kasi you can just insert it and all the information is, accessed. To be honest, nasa era pa rin tayo ng photocopies and tons of documents. Isipin mo yan. All the verifications, all the permits, all the government records, isang card lang. No more e-pass confusion, no repeated checks, no stress at airports. OFWs already carry the economy. They send billions back home. The least the government can do is not make their lives harder. Because if the system already has your data, why is the process still complicated? And that's inefficiency. And when a system creates confusion, delays, and unnecessary steps, we need to ask this kind of question. Who is the system really serving? Because it's clearly not serving the Filipino people, the citizens. So again, if after 5 years or more of waiting, you receive a card that doesn't work on its own, doesn't reduce requirements, and doesn't make life easier, then that's not a national ID. Now, let's move on to the next layers of the Philippine National ID system, the physical card printing. Why Filipinos are still waiting for something that should have been ready from the start. Digital ID. Why the so-called modern solution doesn't actually solve anything and how this exposes the lack of proper planning. Now, here's the thing. You'd think that after how many years of waiting, the physical ID card would be the easiest part. But no, hindi po. Even after all this time, many Filipinos are still stuck with paper IDs. And those plastic cards still delayed. Always. Tulad ng mga ugali ng mga Pilipino, no? Laging late. So let's be honest, this is ridiculous. Imagine applying for a national ID, waiting for years, and when it finally arrives, nakaban paper or hard paper. Nakaprint with QR code pa. And then what? You're told to go ahead. Laminate it yourself. Ikaw na bahala kung gusto mong ilaminate or gawin mo na lang paper plain. Kasi kung mayaman ka, okay. Sure. Plastic card, lamination, maybe even a custom sleeve. Right. Eh kung wala, tough luck. That's a class discrimination, baked into policy. And here's another angle. The physical card is supposed to be the foundation of the ID system. It's not just decoration, It's supposed to allow you to open bank accounts, apply for permits, access government services. Pero guess what? Paper IDs aren't accepted in most places. Let's say PhilHealth, SSS. So the system literally fails at the very thing it's supposed to fix. This isn't just incompetence, it's a planning failure. They rolled out the national ID program without a proper plan for distribution, printing, or functionality. And now what? Filipinos are left to bridge the gap themselves, diba? As always. And okay, so physical cards are delayed or paper based. Naturally, the government says, don't worry, we have digital IDs. Sounds modern, right? But let's dig into what actually that means. Digital ID, it sounds futuristic, like something out of a tech ad. But here's the reality. How about those people who are not into technology? If your digital ID still requires multiple physical documents to transact, like photocopy of that digital ID, if banks and offices don't accept it, if screenshots or PDFs aren't valid, then guess what? Digital ID is useless. Walang kwenta yan. And it's also high risk to fake IDs. It's like putting a Ferrari engine in a tricycle. Maganda sa papel, pero sa kalsada, walang kwenta. So let's break it down logically. Digital ID is supposed to replace paper bureaucracy. It should allow verification without carrying every single document. It should work across banks, government offices, and other services. Pero sa Pilipinas ka lang nakakita. Half of the system is digital. Half of still stuck in 1990s logic. Show us your birth certificate, barangay clearance, and 5 other freaking IDs. So what's the point? And here's what other countries do. Foreign national IDs or residence IDs have embedded chips. You insert it into a reader and all your information is instantly accessible. Like this: identity, residency status, work and tax records, even government services. One card, one scan, done. You're good to go. Hindi mo kailangan magdala ng baol-baol na documents, no? And now, here's where it gets interesting. Because during the Erwin Tulfo hearing, he asked this kind of questions. Bakit ganito katagal bago ma-process ang national ID? And guess what the PSA admitted? Yes, there's a problem with printing. Okay? Hindi biro. This is literally the agency responsible for producing the IDs admitting na may problema sila sa production. And that's why delays are happening. So it's not citizens' fault. It's not lack of applications. It's bureaucracy and poor planning. Imagine waiting for years only to be told, oops, we messed up the printing. And then what? They expect you to be patient? Kung ganon, bakit hindi i-improve the system from the start? To be honest, the national ID should not be temporary. It should not be printed on paper with just thumbnails or iris scans. It should be the main ID for everything: banking, government transaction, travel, permits. Digital ID is useless if it can't be trusted. And it's also prone to fake identities. Filipinos deserve one ID that has all the information they need, so no one has to carry multiple physical documents everywhere, even in airports. Well, let's be honest. After how many years of waiting, if you get a card that doesn't work on its own, doesn't reduce requirements, doesn't make life easier, then that's not a national ID. That's just a souvenir. It's just a display, something to keep in wallet if needed. So on behalf of all Filipinos who want an efficient system, this national ID should be improved. It should not be used as a temporary ID printed on a paper card with just thumbnails or iris scans. It should be the main ID for everything. Digital ID alone is useless and it's prone to fraud. We should have a national ID that contains all the necessary information. So people will not need to bring multiple physical documents anymore. Make it make sense. Until that happens, Filipinos will keep adjusting to a broken system. And that is the real problem. All right, so that's it for today, guys. Hit like, subscribe, and share this because the truth deserves to be heard. And help the channel grow so more people wake up to this reality. I'll see you tomorrow and stay sharp. Bye.